see that there's nothing practically working over here. So why it is such? In case of this fourth parameter, which is optional, practically it doesn't work in case of a Google Chrome or Mozilla or this kind of browsers. So in that particular case, it is better to keep this thing off, to omit this fourth parameter off, and it is an optional, so there won't be any harm coming. So we can turn it off over here, and instead we can use on this particular drop shadow property, as we may see over here, and this will be the result. Now instead of this drop shadow, let's switch on to something different, such as this grayscale. If we put over here this grayscale, and if we say that it should be 100%, get back to your project and reload, you can see that this image is now turned into a grayscale. That means it has turned itself into a colorless object. As we can see that there's practically no color information into these pixels, and it is purely a gray one. On the other hand, instead of gray, first of all, restore the original condition of this particular image that we are currently working on. Now instead of this one, if we use hue rotate, this hue rotate practically allows you to collect any color from that particular color map, and with the aid of that you can turn your image, providing a particular tone to that particular image. So in this particular case, all we need to do, we need to provide the valuation in degree. So this is the degree value that we have provided in this particular case under this hue rotate condition, and the highest valuation of degree that can be imposed over here is 360 degree. So we have provided here this 145 degree. Now let's get back to our project and reload, and you can see that this will be the output. That means we can change the color output of that particular image. Now all those things, practically those previously were done with the aid of this particular graphics software. You may use some separate graphics software over here to do all these changes, but the point is, in our previous cases, all we had to do, we had to import those images first into a graphics software. We had to make all those changes, those are needed, and then we need to import that output to our web browser actually, and we need to use it. But instead of it, without the usage of any kind of third-party graphics software, we now code it simply into our text editor, and we can see the output, the effect of this output over here. All we are now going to do, there are some couple of values out there, such as this hue rotate. There will be, for say, this grayscale. We have seen all those things, this blur, contrast or drop shadow, grayscale, brightness, invert, opacity. There's another something like this opacity here, saturate, there it goes, URL, all those things are over there. So you need to vary all these images and see the result. But in case of this opacity, if you get back over here and if you mention that it should be 30%, get back and reload, and you can see that this will be the output. That means the original image, it is now executing 30% of its full rendered preview, and that is the result in this current state that we are observing into our HTML browser. All we are going to do, we are going to discuss on how to combine two different property values into a single syntax, such as, for say, we are using this hue rotate condition of 145 DEG in the first case. We have seen the output. This will be the output. On the other hand, for say, we need to reduce the opacity level. So we can do that, mentioning that the 50% of this image will be visible, will be opaque over here. So if we now reload, we can see that only 60, how much of it was? 50%. We can see that only 50% of this image is now getting visible, and on the other hand, it is being imposed with the property of hue rotate of 145 degree. In this particular case, we can see that we can use both this hue rotate condition and this opacity condition. But if we use here, for say, grayscale, for say we are providing this grayscale property over here, press Ctrl S, get back to your project, reload, and you can see that only the last property that we have provided here, this grayscale property, it is only executed, it is practically been rendered into a browser, but on the other hand, this hue rotate condition, this is practically invisible into our output. So why it is such? Grayscale practically instructs our browser to disable all the color information to the pixel and turn into a grayscale. That means our image is now getting turned into a grayscale without any color information into the pixel value. So there shouldn't be any kind of this kind of thing such as this hue rotate, because it is related to the color information to the pixels. That is why this output won't be visible into our browser, but instead we will be seeing only this particular grayscale value that we have provided in the last condition. If you want to associate two different properties into a single syntax, always keep in mind that you need to calculate whether these two things are contextual. If they are contextual, only then they will be working accordingly, and if they are not, they won't be working. For say, instead of this grayscale, if we provide here this particular brightness condition, for say we are providing here a brightness of 150%. Get back to your project and reload, and you can see that the brightness is increased. On the other hand, the hue rotate is working well. So we have conjugated two different properties of hue rotate and brightness together into this particular syntax of filter, and both of them are working because both of them are contextual. You may increase the brightness while you may change the color information. So this is the thing that we need to consider while we try to associate two different properties into a single place. All those hack codes, those we have worked with in our previous cases, those will be in activation here while declaring these filter properties in CSS. So these are the hack codes that we need to mention in the previous case, and then we need to mention this particular filter properties over here. And each time this rule will be followed. Whether you are using a chain of properties into action or you are using a single property, you need to mention it along with these hack codes. In the last case, if we want to make our image elliptical, then the last thing that we need to provide is this particular border radius. If we put here this value of border radius as 100%, get back to our project and reload, and we can see that the border radius is now 100%, making the image elliptical. This image was a rectangular in nature. That is why while we have mentioned this particular border radius to be 100%, then only this image is getting elliptical, as the image was rectangular in its original shape. If we want to put here a perfect circular image, then we need to introduce a perfect rectangular image over here, and this is the only way that should be involved while we are using an image and we are making some kind of changes into it. So these are the things that we need to know in this tutorial. Hope you guys have liked this tutorial. If you guys have liked this tutorial, then do not hesitate to hit that red subscribe button down below. Hope to see you guys in our next tutorial. Till then, bye.